Welcome back to the Vegalogue podcast Advocacy edition. I'm Alex Lashchuk.
The role of the school canteen has been developed to be seen as a treat. And so when you look at the canteen as a treat, then you can actually see why children and families order perhaps the lesser nutritious options for children. So looking at how we could sort of change that concept of a school canteen to act as its real purpose, which is about educating children about healthy eating or eating nutritiously and enjoying food.
Today, we're looking at how we can create real, lasting behavior change in children's food habits and why a hot lunch might be one of the most powerful tools we have. In Tasmania, that change is already happening, and Julie Dunbabin is right at the center of it. Julie is a Tasmanian school lunch founder and ambassador at School Food Matters, a non-governmental organisation helping Tasmanian schools provide nutritious, cooked-from-scratch meals using local produce. She's also been a home economics teacher since 1982 and for the past decade has taught a pre-tertiary course in food and nutrition, giving students the knowledge and confidence to make informed food choices for life. In 2018, Julie was awarded the Churchill Fellowship to explore school lunch programs around the world, from Japan to Finland and Scotland to the United States. She's returned with a clear vision for what was possible here at home, and she's been putting it into practice ever since. Through her leadership and advocacy, Tasmania's Healthy School Lunches program has grown from a small pilot into a state-funded initiative, reaching thousands of students across dozens of schools. The outcomes? Better attendance, improved behavior, and kids actually enjoying vegetables, often for the first time. In this episode, we talk about food literacy, culture change, and what it takes to make healthy eating the easy choice, not just for children, but in a way that carries through to adulthood and future generations. I start by asking Julie about her and her daughter's experience of Australian food canteens.
But over my time as a teacher, I witnessed many students unable to access nutritious food for a wide range of reasons. And I strongly believe that all children should be able to access and enjoy the food that's grown in Australia. We grow some amazing food, and in particular, we grow some amazing vegetables as well as great seafood and other protein sources. But I suppose I was actually born in Ballarat, but I lived my primary school years in England, and so I was very used to a school lunch program. So it was quite a shock when we emigrated properly here to Australia in 1970. My mum had to really adjust to a school lunch box, and the fact that you could actually buy something from school from a little shop. And then I suppose as a mum, I've got two daughters who are now in their 20s. I was quite shocked by what was available at the school canteen at our little primary school, and so much so I was asked to stop complaining and actually take some direction of it. And so there was a little team of us were formed, and we transformed that canteen. We lost a few families, but we actually gained quite a number of families who enjoyed the fact that there was a smaller menu from the canteen and it was all cooked from scratch. Yeah, from that experience, it led to me being offered a position with their now state body, which is a non-government organisation with a health promotion perspective, and it was called the Tasmania School Canteen Association. It's now known as School Food Matters. So I was the EO of that organisation from 2010, and I've only just recently retired from that organisation. So I was with them for nearly 15 years in the EO role and then in the school lunch program manager role.
I ask about what the kids thought about that first program.
It's like anything with children. You have to gain their trust and hear what they're saying and what they do like and don't like. I think as adults, we do tend to underestimate their ability to know the importance of food and the taste of food. So yes, my children, they wanted to have chicken nuggets, but they also could see that having a big bowl of minestrone soup was just as yummy. And in fact, they would actually ask for soup if we ever went out to a restaurant, etc., rather than having the kids' menu. I think all children, and it's why advertising is so used, because it can have positive, from their angle anyway, positive impacts on children to want to try some of the foods that they see on TV or hear about. So we definitely had some children that did not like the fact that we'd changed the menu. And then we had children that came in because the food had been changed. So yeah, it's really interesting, that whole space that food occupies, and particularly for children. It's actually quite a positive space if you listen to what the children are saying and what the parents are saying, but also matching that with the science of providing nutritious food for children.
Julie's transition from being a teacher to running a small organization began in 2010.
We were basically charged with providing a canteen accreditation program, which had 4 components to it: school policy, menu assessment, which was done by dietitians, the aspect of food safety, which is always paramount in a school setting, and then that whole school approach to eating healthily. So whether that included school gardens, whether it was a school farm that was attached to the school, what was happening at recess, and we now have veggie and fruit breaks at recess. So it was sort of looking at that whole school approach to healthy eating. And that journey, I suppose, allowed me to see quite intimately what was going on in schools. It was my job to go and visit schools, to provide the awards, to talk to the teachers, etc., talk to the children. And I suppose that spurred me to apply for a Churchill Fellowship.
In 2018, Julie was awarded a prestigious Churchill Fellowship, a national program that supports Australians to travel overseas and bring back new ideas that can make a lasting impact in their communities.
And then I travelled on my Churchill Fellowship in 2019, just before COVID broke out. And I think that I must have sparked a bit of an interest, because one, I was awarded the Churchill Fellowship, and they're not easy to get. And two, it was such a topic that isn't really often talked about. But when you start to ask questions, there's quite a lot of buy-in about what we should be feeding our children. The role of the school canteen has been developed to be seen as a treat. And so when you look at the canteen as a treat, then you can actually see why children and families order perhaps the lesser nutritious options for children. So looking at how we could sort of change that concept of a school canteen to act as its real purpose, which is about educating children about healthy eating, or eating nutritiously and enjoying food. I think that journey was encapsulated with me getting the Churchill, and then I've learnt so much from bringing that information home, and the challenges of setting it up in a country that doesn't agree, at the moment anyway, with a sit-down lunch, because we're so used to the way that we do provide food to children in a lunchbox or from the canteen.
Julie has travelled extensively during the fellowship to learn from other countries' school lunch programs.
So I did visit 7 countries. So I did visit parts of America, England, Scotland, Finland, Italy, France, and Japan. And I could have gone to many more, because in the OECD countries, that is the norm. The norm is for children to be provided lunch, all children. So they all sit down, they go to a hall, or they get fed in the Japanese style, they get fed in their classroom, everyone eating the same meal.
There were some key learnings that Julie brought back to Australia.
So I sort of had the luxury of identifying some key elements from across those countries. And in the school canteen program that we've got running, I was able to cherry pick those key elements. So they were things like all children ate the school lunch. So there was no, these children can't afford it, these children can. In some countries, they were charged for that. And so the children would tap on when they got their food. And then it was the admin that would know at the end of term to send an account home to the family, or an account to the government. All children were given at least 20 minutes to sit and eat. So that was to sit down at a table and eat with their friends, and sometimes it was the teacher as well, and sometimes it was actually the community coming in and having lunch with the children, which I did see quite a bit in Finland, which was a really lovely connection to community. In France, they actually give an hour for school lunch. So it's interesting to see those countries that have a great depth of food as history, how they actually then teach that to their children. So we specified that we had to have at least 20 minutes in Australia if we were going to get something up and running. I didn't see any confectionery whatsoever. And in our little shops in the schools in Australia, in some areas there are, the chance to buy a bag of lollies, etc. It's slowly being phased out, but it's still possible. I saw that there was a skilled workforce that was really valued and part of the school. We do have acknowledged canteen supervisors that do get paid, but the general norm of a school canteen in Australia is a voluntary basis where it's very much a parent or a grandparent or someone running the school canteen. So it's quite a different emphasis. I saw a great pride in using local and seasonal food. And that's when I thought, well, why can't we do that in Australia? To actually be really proud of the food that we do produce, because we do produce some amazing, food that's cheered nationally and internationally. I saw that dietitians and cooks were involved in developing the menu plan. So that's certainly been a basis that we've used in the program in Tasmania. That there was that diverse food selection culturally and dietary wise. So it was certainly something that we had to look at in providing food for children. One of the big things was that the menu was based and discussed as the 5 food groups. In Australia, we tend to talk about nutrients. We tend to talk about low fat, high fibre, low sugar. That's the sort of language. And then obviously there was an infrastructure there to prepare and serve food. And that element has definitely been raised as an issue while we can't do it. But we've been able to show that even with the smallest improvement in infrastructure, we can definitely provide school lunches to children. And we've got runs on the board in that space.
There is one surprising food that highlights the biggest issues with traditional Australian school canteens.
It's really interesting that, I have to confess, I watched the video that Jamie Oliver put together about how a chicken nugget's made, and he's doing this with a group of children. And of course, they're aghast at the components of the chicken that are put into the chicken nugget. But once he shaped that nugget and once he crumbed it, once he had cooked it, there was a slight hesitation from the children, knowing what was in it, but because they could recognise the shape, and they were anticipating the taste, they straight away ate them. And it was quite impacting, really. Food is designed in the fast food space to always be reliable, always to look a certain way. And so I thought, well, we've got to do something about this, but it's really hard to do something when large companies know how to make food to taste and look the same way. And it's quite a bit of an uphill battle. And what we can see in schools is that the chicken nugget is the queen of what the children select because they know it. So one of our concerns is that children are eating chicken nuggets at lunchtime, and then they possibly are eating chicken nuggets for dinner as well. So it's very much reducing the scope of children's taste. It's really making it mono. So we needed to look at ways how could we get colour, and in particular, vegetables and fruit, providing that colour back into school meals.
Importantly, there are some key principles that the school lunch program follows in its food preparation.
It's been really important for us to have really strong menu principles as to what can be served to children, and keeping in mind that cook from scratch. Because it's quite easy then for, if you don't have those principles, that things like chicken nuggets could creep in, and bought burgers and all that sort of thing. So having the nutritional guiding principles, but also principles about always having that local scene provided, so that we choose in Tasmania, we choose Tasmanian produce first. Second is Australian, and the very, very third, it's international, because we want to actually showcase what we grow here.
I asked Julie about the inception of the current school lunch program.
So I suppose when I came back from my Churchill fellowship early in 2020, I had to write a report. That was one of my duties, as all Churchill fellows have to do. And of course, I had set up that I would present that to key people in the state, particularly politicians and heads of departments. And then because of COVID, there was an underspend in the area, in the health department, in linking communities to come together. And so I was given the opportunity and, to develop a small program. So it was 3 schools, it was for 20 days, and we actually fed all the children in those 3 schools to see how it would work. And the beauty was that we were able to evaluate that as well through the Menzies Institute for Medical Research. From that little 20-day experiment or feasibility study, our state government could see there were some really strong benefits, and they invested in piloting for the whole year with 15 schools to start with in 2022, and then another 15 schools after that. So and now we've got another 15 schools that started this year. So we've got 45 schools at the moment that are actually participating in the lunch. It started as a pilot, but now it's actually a program. It's got a budget line. And last year, with the election that we had at state level, there was actually additional funding provided so we could expand to 60 schools by the start of next year, so in 2026.
And the benefits of the program are many.
One of the big ones was that some children were coming to school on the particular days of the lunch program. So that in itself was a really interesting lever for government, because during COVID, there was also a heightened awareness of food insecurity. And so it linked to some families not sending their children to school when there was nothing in the pantry or in the fridge to put in the lunch boxes. So I think that whilst COVID brought so many negatives, I think one of the positives was that we could actually look at what we did differently. And in this space, how could we feed children differently, and how could we encourage those children to come to school? But what we do know is that families are very appreciative of the fact that this is really helping them with food access and their issues of providing food on the table. Families are telling us that it takes the pressure off them knowing that their child having a good meal, a hearty meal in the middle of the day. And then it's not so much pressure then on the evening meal to be such a big meal. But we very much pride ourselves on the fact that every child gets fed, whether they have difficulty accessing food or not. Because food's a leveler. And by doing that, you remove that stigma of not being able to access food.
Interestingly, European school lunch programs stemmed from food security concerns.
And if you think back to the European example, their whole school lunch program started after World War II. And it was mainly because of children not being able to go to school. And also there was a high level of malnourishment. And so the government actually introduced school lunch programs to encourage children to come to school and to actually feed them up after the rations, etc. Now, we didn't have that in Australia, so that's why I think we've gone a different path.
The benefits continue.
Yeah, so some of the benefits are definitely things like engaged learning. We can see that children are more settled before lunch and after lunch because, one, they know they're going to get a meal, and then two, because they've got really nutritious food in their tummies, they're quite settled after lunch. They're a lot more calmer, a lot more focused. And parents, and teachers in particular, are well aware that this is the positive outcome. And that actually helps the teachers as well, because they're not as focused on behavioural management after lunch. They're actually able to actually teach. So it's a real plus. The health and well-being of the children. We know that they're getting increased access to food. We know they're getting more vegetables in particular, and fruit. And they're also obviously getting their protein needs whilst they're at school. So that's a real benefit. And then obviously there's that community capacity building. So we are seeing parents wanting to be involved where they can in volunteering, and grandparents. And some of our communities, the older generation of that community, see it's a really neat way for them to be involved and be part of the school lunch program. And I could say that some of the other issues that have come through that have been really positive is that, one, children are trying a broader range of food. So we are developing their taste buds. They actually really love sitting down at the table with their friends and having a chat and eating. I think that's one of the loveliest things that's come out of the program. But all schools say it's so nice when we see the children sitting down calmly, eating and chatting. So there's definitely some real pluses in that space. The fact that they're developing fine motor skills with using knives and forks and spoons. Quite a lot of the schools said that some of the children didn't know how to do that. So that sense of food literacy is also increasing with children knowing where their food comes from, asking what is this vegetable. So it's a real plus.
Julie highlights the connection to local farmers as a big part of the program.
The really big thing for us with that community connection is the connection with the farmers in Tasmania. We work really closely with another NGO called Loaves and Fishes Tasmania. Their major focus has been emergency food relief. So they've got those relationships with farmers and producers. And through the school lunch program, they can actually ask for large quantities of fruit and vegetable and pay for them because it's budgeted for. So that lovely connection with local farmers has been a real positive in the school lunch program.
Julie shares some personal stories of how she has seen the program impact kids and parents.
I mean, I always, in my office, always had a picture of a particular student who was a twin and one of, I think it was 9 children. And when he first was part of the lunch program, he couldn't believe he could have a full plate because being from a large family and being low down on the begging order, he was probably, not as quick as some of his brothers and sisters. And then when I said to him that he could go for seconds, the look on his face, a big, huge smile. And I have that smile. He's my poster boy for the project. Another story, I had a parent send me a beautiful email about the fact that her child was needing to go to Melbourne for an operation. Most times the child wasn't accepted because he couldn't put on the weight that he needed to have the operation. And while she doesn't know exactly the parent, she inferred that because her child had been part of the lunch program and had actually put on weight, that now it may be that it wasn't that, but that's the only thing that was different, that he was starting to enjoy his food a lot more. And so he was able to go and have his operation. And then I always remember a young boy who is from a rural area. I was at AgFest, which is a big celebration of agriculture in Tasmania. And this gentleman and this young boy came to because we had a stall there to talk about what we were doing. And this young boy's dad said, "Oh, my son wanted to come and meet you because he thinks what you're doing is amazing." And he just loves school lunch, and he's so excited when it's school lunch. And it was really interesting talking to this young boy. He said, "Oh, what I would love to see on the menu is a jacket potato with a topping." And so we were able to do that. And so he was so thrilled that he'd had that input into the menu.
The program has also shown promise in changing kids' food habits at home.
We definitely know, and we've developed recipe cards so that the children can take the recipe home. We know that children want to cook the meal that they've had at school for their family on the weekends. And we've certainly had feedback from parents saying that going to the supermarket now is not quite so stressful because the children are pointing out vegetables like cauliflower, for example, and saying, "Oh, we had this today. We had mac cheese, but it had cauliflower in it, and this is the cauliflower, and I would really like to have this vegetable." And parents are saying they may have bought the cauliflower in the past and not known really what to do with it, and then it sat in the fridge and then it wasn't used, but they're more confident now because the children are asking for particular vegetables and fruits, more vegetables than anything, but it's really powerful, and that's that food literacy that's being built for children, but also feeding back into what the families feel comfortable with.
The Plus One Serve program aims to increase Australian vegetable consumption by 1 serve per person per day by 2030. And the school lunch program is helping kids do just that from an early age.
all of our menus items, so all of our recipes have a vegetarian alternative. And something that I brought back from France is that they were encouraging all children to have a vegetarian meal once a fortnight, I think it was, and we are replicating that in the Tasmanian program. So we do have some really veggie-laden meals. We obviously top those up with protein through chickpeas and lentils and tofu, but even the spaghetti bolognese, for example, is jam-packed with vegetables. We've grated in carrot and zucchini and that type of thing. But interestingly enough, the veg curry, particularly when we made it a bit more creamier or, like a korma, the children, that was one of their most favourite meals. So we can see that children, if it's colourful and tasty, they actually do enjoy their vegetables. And we're not seeing children picking out vegetables. Sometimes lentils, but not vegetables. And the staff have been really quite surprised because they probably thought that, the children won't eat that because they can see the vegetables. But this is where I was saying we underestimate sometimes the ability of children to know what's good for them. And so they have really enjoyed the veg curry. We have a savoury slice as well that's packed with vegetables. Whilst we do provide spaghetti bolognese, we also do a lentil bolognese, and the children really love that. And they really love the lentil cottage pie. That's definitely up there as the favourites.
The paddock to plane concept is also highlighted.
The children really love the paddock to plate concept in the curriculum, and I think the school lunch program just doesn't do this alone. Like any health promotion campaign, it needs coming from all different angles. And so we work really closely with schools that are operating their Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden program. We have a 24 carrot program. We've also got a government program called Move Well, Eat Well. We have another NGO, it's called Eat Well Tasmania. So we actually work together, and obviously Loaves and Fishes, we work together to provide information and connect to those curriculum services and programs. Whilst the school garden can't produce enough food every week to supply the vegetables that we need, for example, what they are doing is actually growing lots of herbs for us, which actually enhance a lot of the meals that we have. And the children are involved with that. Or if, say, the children are having the veg curry and they're growing pumpkins, then that connection to the pumpkins being in the veg curry is that lovely connection. And they've grown that food and cultivated it and then helped to chop it up, etc., etc. So there's some really positive connections to what's going on in schools. And I think that the school gardens are really important. And in Tasmania, we've got 15 schools that also have a farm component to their school. So that as well connects really beautifully with the children knowing what's in their lunch, and some of that is from their school. Most of it's sourced from farmers, but there's that ability to connect with what's happening in their school. From what we can see and what we're told, it's very positive because of that paddock to plate, that understanding of, this is actually a vegetable and this is what it looks like. We have heard stories that children just think carrots grow in a bag and you just buy them from the supermarket. Now they can see through their school garden experiences, but also when they see the vegetables coming in from the central kitchen, that they're actually from a farmer. And this is what I saw work really well in Italy. A lot of the schools didn't have space to grow anything, but the farmers came in and talked with the children, and there's great scope for that to happen with the school lunch program so that the children meet the farmers.
The program has also been shown to tie in well with the school curriculum.
The other side of that is that the senior children from, say, grade 9 through to grade 12 can be involved in vet programs at their school. So it could be in agriculture, horticulture, or hospitality. And some schools are actually overlaying the school lunch program with their curriculum. So they're actually cooking the food for their cohorts to enjoy. So that's a real plus, I think, in skill development, but also connecting to the agricultural and hospitality aspect of potential jobs. Really, there's lovely pathways being created.
And job creation is another benefit of the program.
whilst you've got the benefits of providing nutritious food to every child, you're also creating jobs for the people that are preparing the food for the children. And then long term, there's that connection for children to see, oh, well, there's a career path in this space. So I'd love to see, I suppose, that acknowledged as part of the program.
As a final question, I ask Julie if there were no barriers, so no funding issues, no policy hurdles, and she could wave a magic wand to change one thing in the space, what would it be?
I think the one thing would be that we do have a universal school lunch program for Australia. Obviously, we're starting off quite well in Tasmania, but even in Tasmania, we haven't got it for every child yet on every day. I've seen, obviously, in other countries that that's just the norm, and that school lunch is part of the day. And I would love to see that in the magic wand capacity, that is then for every child, every day, in every school in Australia.
You've been listening to the Vegalogue podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and give the podcast a rating and review to help others find us. Vegalogue is produced by AUSVEG, the peak industry body for Australian vegetable, potato and onion growers. You can find more news and information from AUSVEG at ausveg.com.au, on our social media channels, or in the Australian Grower magazine. Thank you for listening.